Good evening, everyone. I am Pastor Kenneth Paul Rosero. At the same time, I am a teacher, a licensed teacher. I finished secondary education, bachelor's in secondary education in Partido State University, majoring English. And as I mentioned, I also work as a pastor and as an online freelancer. So I'm actually a virtual assistant for almost 5 years now, and yeah, I'm also a father of two, three this coming December, and of course, a husband of just one. And I would like to thank the PSU Campus Ministry for inviting me to share in this much needed dialogue about faith, about hope, and about resilience. Particularly as we talk about something many still hesitate to discuss openly, and we know that very well about mental health. Just recently, I think hindi naman lingid sa inyong kaalaman. Our nation was shaken by the passing of Eman Atienza. Well, personally, I do not know her before the situation or before the incident of her committing suicide. But because of her, but she's been a TikTok star. I don't do TikToks a lot. Kaya hindi ko rin siya kilala. But I know his father. Of course, we all know Kim Matienza. But she became a what's this? A headline in a lot of news, a lot of social media headlines and pages and news outlets, media, and basically, her story deeply touched many Filipinos because she had been very open about her battle with depression and trauma. Actually, because of the incident, I tried to check on some of her videos on TikTok, and especially the interview she had with Tony Gonzaga, if you know that. So Tony Talks in the YouTube channel Tony Talks, she bravely discussed her childhood pain and ongoing struggles. So she's still trying to even recover. I think that was 10 months ago or a year ago. I'm not pretty much sure. But when her death was announced, some of people or a lot of people online also reacted in the wrong way, right? So they blamed the parents, they blamed Kim Atienza and the wife. They questioned her faith, knowing that Kim Atienza does a lot of, evangelical and gospel sharing on his vlogs, even labeling her act, Eman's act, as a choice. Now, the father, Kim Atienza, boldly responded by calling that kind of attitude among Christians as evangelical bullying. And that is actually really true. A lot of our extreme conservative brothers and sisters in Christ are actually bullies sometimes. But his response reminds the public that his daughter was actually clinically depressed. That is a very important factor to consider in that particular situation. And she was not just sad or she was not just rebellious. This situation painfully exposes a very common problem in our society, even among those who believe in God, among those Christians. We often misunderstand mental illness. We tend to judge what we don't understand. We assume faith alone removes depression, when in truth, faith anchors us while we seek the healing that we need through God's grace and through the help that He provides, the resources we have, the people we have. So, it is very important to understand the struggle. We have to understand the storm. Before we talk about faith as an anchor, we must first understand the problem. What's the storm about? In the Philippines, we have, mental health problem becomes increasingly serious. The World Health Organization, WHO, and TOH reported that 1 in 5 Filipinos may be struggling with symptoms of anxiety and depression, and most never seek help. And the reason for that is due to stigma. And other than that is the lack of access to professionals. In one study, Just a disclaimer. These information are, I think, 4 or 5 years ago. Just to be clear, this one is, I think, during the time of COVID, and this one's during the time, yeah, before COVID. But there may be changes. I wasn't able to extract the most recent one, but there may be slight changes during our time now. But as you can see, there are only one among five Filipinos suffer from mental disorders. And here's the scary, or the reality, uh, the reality we have to absorb. There's only one psychiatrist for every 250,000 Filipinos. That's really a huge thing for us to consider, especially when considering mental health. And for those with mental disorders, only around 0.44% are actually diagnosed or sought help. And as I have explained, I mean, the reason for that is, of course, the stigma we have, how we culturally respond to that particular situation, even if the person is part of our family. There's really this stigma going around, brought about by our culture. Now, here's one important question people often ask. What's the rate of cured or healed mentally ill persons in the Philippines? Now, sad to say, there are no official statistics for a quote unquote, cure rate, because mental illness doesn't always have a single permanent cure like many physical diseases. Actually, in fact, yung friend ko who is a psychologist, staying in Davao, residing in Davao City, he said that most of his clients, if not all, are actually recovered from their depression, especially depression, clinical depression and anxiety. And he further added, sabi niya that it is indeed it's one controversial thought where most would say na most mental illnesses are a lifetime. Now that is really a controversy. But the thing is, we also don't have like official or concrete statistics for that, given the confidentiality of the information when we talk about illness or mental health conditions. Now, but here's the good news. He said, with proper treatment and therapy, he said that 70 to 80% of those people with clinical depression, they significantly improve and live normal, meaningful lives. And that is why it is very important for them to seek help. And that is why it is very important for us to continue this awareness campaign regarding mental health. Now, this is not to, excuse people, especially the younger generation now. I think one of the observation I have as well is a lot of the impressions now among younger generation is, we don't have that kind of level of resilience as compared to millennials or older people. And I think that is also observable, 'di ba? Konting konting problema lang sa friendship, magkakaroon na ng mental health issue. Well, that is true. We cannot also deny the reality that that is also happening. So, while not every case is instantly cured, most can recover and live well. That's what my psychologist friend actually told me. If they find the right combination of number one, medical care, number two, emotional support, and number three, faith. I so happened this friend of mine who is a psychologist, clinical psychologist, also happened to work in the church, also happened to be a pastor. So he somehow understood how this actually works with his actual clients. And it is really important to have all of these three work together. Medical care, emotional support, especially the community around that particular person. It is very important na maintindihan nila how to actually help that person. Now, we have to understand that faith may not be the only or sole solution, but faith anchors us to these solutions we need to seek for. One verse says in Hebrews chapter 6 that God promised Abraham, God promised the some of the followers he had in the Old Testament in the Bible, and the writer of Hebrews also said that we have this hope as an anchor for the soul, firm and secure. Now, one important factor we have to understand about faith is it anchors you. When you believe on something, when you believe on something that is true, that you believe is true, when you believe on something that is that for you is a reality, when you believe on something that for you is the only solution, when you believe on something that for you is the truth, then more likely you have a more anchored perspective in life, di ba? Kapag naniniwala ka na kaya mo kahit nahihirapan ka, you will pursue, right? Even if you don't have a clear picture of the future, pero naniniwala ka na maaabot mo, you will pursue, you will continue, you will become resilient, you will gain this kind of courage. So faith really is important. Everyone has actually faith, whether we have faith in ourselves, faith in money, faith on money, or faith in a supreme being, faith in God. We all exercise faith actually, whether we believe or trust or have faith in material things. It is very important to understand na we are actually exercising faith. Now let me share you some ways or four ways where faith becomes this anchor of. So number one, faith anchors our identity. Do not fear, I have redeemed you. I have called you by name. You are mine. Isaiah 43:1 said, God. Now, depression often attacks our sense of worth. That is true. Like, am I worthy? I did experience mild depression before. The good thing is I have people. I'm just really thankful that I do have this faith in God, and God works among those people around me. Now, depression often attacks our sense of worth. Whispers, "You're not enough. You are forgotten. You're a failure." I remember there was a we have a youth fellowship sa San Jose, and I tried to ask the young people to write down what they think they believe they are, like ano yung paniniwala nila patungkol sa sarili nila. And I noticed as pastors noticed a few notes. Pinasulat kasi namin sila, tas parang nilagay namin sa box. Because I mean, a lot of them would say, people tell me that I'm good, mga ganun, all positive. But what stood out to us were these few papers, I think five or seven papers, I'm not really sure, telling or saying, wrote down, saying that they are unworthy and that they believe they're a failure. Like literally, they wrote it down. I am a failure. And that really shook our what's this thoughts. I mean, our thinking during that particular activity in that event, because there really are people there really are people who believes that they are not enough. Okay, but faith reminds us of something unshakable. That is one thing you have to understand. You are loved, you are seen, and you are His. Now, our worth is not based on our success, not based on performance, not based on emotional stability. Look at Eman, I'm not sure if this is true, pero may nakita akong post just recently na even Kim Atienza did not realize na ang grabe pala yung material or yung naipundar ni Eman Atienza sa LA, sa US. He did not expect na ganun pala kalaki yung mga naipundar niya. I'm not sure. I did not verify that, pero nakita ko sa post na ganun nga, na marami pala siyang naipundar. Well, being a TikTok personality, being a social media personality, I mean, there's really money in there, and she's really bold when she expresses her thoughts and opinions about situations, about the politics, about our government and stuff like that. So people really listen to her, and she's actually kind of smart when she talks. So our worth is not based on those successes. Even her case, being clinically depressed, she was not. It was nothing actually. Having a mansion, perhaps, or having a good house, having a successful family, having everything most people would want to have. Those were not enough, right, to stop her from committing suicide. Now, it's based on our position as children of God. This is one thing. This is one thing we have to understand. If you see your worth as a creation, more likely, you won't be seeing yourself as less worthy. Because if you believe that you're created in the image of God, that is a strong anchor for you to face different emotional instability along the way. Of course, you may feel sad, you may feel depressed, but that kind of hope you have, that kind of faith you have, will often build your trust in that particular truth. So faith restores identity where depression erodes it. Even in our darkest moments, God's love doesn't lessen. Hindi nagbabawas yung pag-ibig ng Diyos sa atin. And that's one important thing we have to understand. Now, the second thing is that faith anchors our perspective. Now, this is one of the verses I really like na sinabi sa Bible. Ang nagsulat po nito ay si Apostle Paul in 2 Corinthians 5:7. He said, "We walk by faith and not by sight," which is actually true, you know. Um, a lot of people, even if you talk to successful people like those business tycoons, it's really not about um, finding or doing things based on the conditions, on the good conditions you are in. It's really more on what your vision is, what you believe, what your beliefs are rather. Kung ano yung pinaniniwalaan mo na hindi pa nangyayari, regardless of the situations happening around you, you will pursue. Now, when you are in pain, your world feels smaller and your future feels distant. Diba? Parang ang layo ng future sa'yo when you are in pain. But faith gives us a different lens. That's the good thing about faith. It helps us to see beyond the immediate hurt. If pain is this big in front of your eyes, faith actually gives us a different lens and opens our eyes and see beyond that particular pain we see. Where the world says this is the end, faith says this is not the end of the story. You know, and that is actually true. That is actually true among a lot of people, whether Christian or not. If they believe on something and if they believe that they will gain it, it will happen. Because one truth that the Bible also told us is whatever you plant, that's what you reap. Diba? Kung ano yung itinanim mo, yan yung aanihin mo. So if you plant trust, if you plant faith, if you plant consistency, then you will eventually reap the fruit of those labor. Now, another thing is that faith anchors us through community. Now, napakahalaga kung ano yung role ng community in our with in relation to our mental health. Now, according to Galatians chapter 6 verse 2, Apostle Paul said, "Carry each other's burdens, and in this way you will fulfill the law of Christ." The enemy tries to tell us, the enemy is trying to tell us that we are alone, we don't have friends, no one can help us. Basically, the enemy at the back of our head is telling us that no one can help us. But it is the total opposite of what God is telling us. The only way for a person experiencing mental health struggles is by maximizing the resources she or he has, especially the human resources or the community where she's in. One of the isolation magnifies pain. When you're all alone, it magnifies the pain. even if you're just sad. Say, for example, there is a very sad situation in your life. Now, I'm not saying it's wrong to cry. I'm not saying sadness should be denied. Sadness is part of our emotion. But if you let sadness control your actions, say, for example, magpunta ka na tuloy sa Bartolina o sa ilalim ng bahay nyo and be alone for certain length of time, say a month, it magnifies more the pain. You know, that kind of isolation magnifies the pain. However, connection restores perspective. It is very important for us to understand na ang community o ang tao sa paligid na mga tao sa paligid natin are actually a source of one way to recover from this kind of struggles. That is why I don't have an actual experience, but one of my one of the family members na meron kami also has this kind of situation. And as far as I can remember, we were told or we were advised to also take part, um, take some certain level of responsibilities whenever we approach, whenever we talk, or whenever we assist or support our relative dahil meron siyang mental condition. So it's a very important factor. And one of the best predictors of recovery from depression is a supportive community. You know, if you have a family, if you have friends, mentors, or small groups helping you out, then that is a very good predictor of recovery from mental or from any type of depression. Now, we have to learn to listen. That is one factor. You know, if you know the story of Job in the Bible, one good thing that his friends did after all of the events na nangyari sa kanya, namatayan siya ng 10 anak, nawala yung mga ari-arian niya, yung asawa niya iniwan siya, nagkasakit pa siya. Um, Tapos pumunta yung tatlo niyang friends. If you know that story, one important thing that they did when they went and see Job, they listened. They listened to Job, and that is actually a very biblical and a true effort na pwedeng gawin ng community, ng family members in helping someone recover from any type of depression. So that's one thing. And last but not the least is that faith anchors us in prayer and surrender. Now, this, I mean, you may not believe in prayer. I'm not sure if all of you believe in prayer. But one important reminder that the Bible is telling us in Philippians chapter 4, verse 6 to 7 is do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your request to God. Now, good thing if you believe in God. But if you question God or if you don't believe in God, then this must be something you will have difficulties with. But here's one thing I'm gonna tell you. There's no evidence, or there's no evidence of people uh going to God, praying to God, becoming worse in their mental health struggles. In fact, the more a person trusts in God, the more a person prays, the more he becomes calm, the more he or she becomes more peaceful, and most likely she will be able to focus more in order to resolve situation or the problem or the issue. Now, prayer does not always remove the storm. That's one important thing we have to understand. Prayer does not always remove the storm, but it calms the storm within. And by becoming a calm person, there's no way for you to find solution if you are actually hysterical, if you are out of your out of your control. But it calms the storm within, and that helps you find a solution. And surrender is not giving up as well. You know, it is giving over to the one who holds us even when we are weak. There are a lot of times that we need to surrender. You know, surrendering meaning entrusting it to someone who is much powerful than us. Diba? It happens a lot sa actual life natin. We surrender to our teachers, right? Whatever the teachers want, our professors want us to do, we surrender. We do it for the sake of making sure we get good grades later on, or we pass the exam, or we learn, or we graduate. We surrender. When you're employed, you surrender to your boss. Whatever he tells you to do, believing that he has power over you, we surrender. Surrendering is actually not bad. Surrendering a lot of times teaches us humility, and it teaches us how to recognize ourselves, or how to recognize someone more powerful than us. And that means we entrust to that particular person, or to that someone. When you can't hold on to God anymore, faith says that's okay. God is still holding on to us. Now, now let me illustrate something that often helps people understand why mental health is such a challenge. So when we compare mental health to physical health, physical illnesses are often easier to cure, right? Mas madali, in general sense, mas madaling gamutin. You can take medicine, pwede kang mag-surgery, you can do therapy to recover. But mental health needs a deeper kind of healing, one that involves the mind, emotions, community, and faith. So it's actually a lot more complicated than we think. While the body needs medicine, the soul needs meaning. When you understand that there's meaning in life, the better we live our lives. But if we don't think life has a meaning, I don't think we can live a better life. Faith provides that anchor, and it gives reason to live, strength to fight, and peace that medicine alone cannot give. So it is very important to understand that we may not have exact cure rates for mental illness, sabi nga natin kanina sa introduction, but we have something far more powerful, and that is a God who offers wholeness, not just healing of the body, but restoration of heart and of the mind. So, one important thing we have to understand, there are a few practical ways to stay anchored in your faith. You have to pause and pray. You connect and confide with people. Find the bestest friend you have. Someone you can trust, or maybe a family of yours. Feed on truth. That's one important thing. Feed on truth, not on lies. The more we eat, halimbawa, hot dog is a carcinogenic food. Ka-level na yan, according to WHO, ka-level na yan ng paninigarilyo. When we feed ourselves hot dogs daily, what do we get? Cancer. So when we feed ourselves lies, we will get we will believe on lies, and that's where we live. If we believe that we're not enough, then fear will creep in. But if we feed ourselves with truth, then we can replace lies and fears with the promises of the scripture, or promises of the Bible. So according to Psalm 61 chapter 2, the writer of Psalms, which is David, when my heart is overwhelmed, sabi niya, when my heart is overwhelmed, lead me to the rock that is higher than I. We always have to recognize that there is someone more powerful than us, someone that knows us better, you know. And finally, we have to seek help early. Find a counselor. I know this is gonna be difficult, and I think the church. I mean, a lot of churches are not doing well with this, but I think this is also a wake up call to a lot of Christian churches na become a channel to those people who are seeking um help in terms of mental conditions. So going to a counselor, going to go to a doctor, it doesn't make you weak. It means you are fighting wisely. If you need assistance, then look for someone you think can help you out, especially counselors. So God heals through miracles, through medicine, and through meaningful relationship. That's one important thing we have to understand. So going back to the illustration we have earlier during our introduction, Eman's passing, Eman Atienza, it's not only a tragedy, but it was also a reminder to all of us, parents, Christians, students, young people. It's a reminder that compassion must always come before correction. That is very important. So let us stop labeling mental illness as lacking faith. That's evangelical bullying, as what Kim Atienza would say. Let us start creating safe spaces where it's okay to admit I'm not okay. Because admitting you're not okay is the first step. It's a brave act, saying you're not okay. And the next step to that is looking for solution, looking for support, looking for help. So that's one important thing, because without admitting that you need help, letting it will be very difficult for us to overcome that kind of situation. So I think that's where I would end my time here. As I close, let's go back to our anchor verse, Hebrews chapter 6, verse 19. We have this hope as an anchor for the soul, and firm and secure. Jesus Christ, I'm going to tell you, if you know Jesus Christ, nothing's wrong with trying him out. Try him out, know him, because he's the best anchor for our soul. I'm going to tell you that. A lot of people will say that. Those who know, those who have tried studying the Bible, those who have tried reading the Bible, those who have tried believing in him, they're actually, experiencing a much better perspective in life. Now, the anchor doesn't stop the waves, it just keeps the ship from drifting. Faith won't remove every storm, but it will hold you steady through it. So, as we end, faith doesn't erase pain, but it transforms it. Faith doesn't deny reality, but it gives meaning to it. And faith doesn't always cure, but it anchors you. So, let your faith be that anchor. Let Christ be your safe harbor, and let hope, born from faith, carry you until the storm passes. I hope you will have a wonderful night. Thank you.